Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today's conversation with a bit of a confession.
Oh,
I think for the vast majority of my life, and I'm willing to bet this applies to most people listening right now, I have been operating under just a fundamental misunderstanding of what my brain is actually doing at night.
you and almost everyone else.
Yeah.
It is probably the most pervasive biological myth we have in modern society.
It's the light switch theory, right? That's how I've always visualized it.
Mm.
You're awake, you're productive, the lights are on, the factory's running. Then you get into bed, you flip the switch, the factory shuts down, and you just exist in the dark for 8 hours.
A pause button.
I'm a pause button. Maybe there's a screensaver bouncing around in there, but mostly it's just a passive state where nothing really happens.
That is the classic view. Sleep is the absence of wakefulness.
Mm.
But when we actually looked at the stack of research for this episode, I mean, the neurobiology, the HPA axis work, the studies from heavy hitters like Matthew Walker and Andrew Huberman, that idea just completely falls apart.
It's not a pause button.
It's not even close. If wakefulness is the factory running the assembly line, sleep is the night crew coming in for deep structural maintenance. It's a metabolically furious, highly active state.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In some stages of sleep, your brain is actually burning more glucose and is more electrically active than when you are sitting here talking to me right now.
That is the headline for today, then. We are moving beyond the bumper sticker advice, because everyone knows, get 8 hours. That's easy to say. But the mission here is to understand why.
Exactly.
Why you can be unconscious for 8 hours and still wake up feeling like you've been hit by a truck.
Right. Because duration is just one variable. The real secret, and this is the word we're going to use a lot today, is architecture.
Architecture.
Sleep has a structure. It has a blueprint. And if you knock down the supporting walls of that structure, the house collapses no matter how long you spend in bed.
So let's look at the blueprints. If I'm not just powering down, what is the structure? How does the night actually unfold?
Well, first you have to stop thinking of sleep as one long, uniform block of time. We don't just sleep.
We cycle.
We cycle. Specifically, we go through what are called ultradian rhythms.
Okay, so we all know circadian rhythms, that's the 24-hour clock. Ultradian is faster.
Much faster. In the context of sleep, an ultradian rhythm is a cycle that lasts roughly 90 to 110 minutes. So you hit the pillow and you basically start a timer. For the next hour and a half, you're going to travel through a very specific sequence of states. Then the buzzer sort of rings, you briefly resurface, and you dive back down for another 90 minutes.
So a typical night isn't one event, it's 4 or 5 separate laps around a track.
Exactly. A healthy adult gets 4 to 6 of these laps. But here's the nuance that most people miss, and it's just critical for understanding why we feel the way we do in the morning.
Okay.
These laps are not identical.
The composition changes.
Drastically. The architecture shifts as the night goes on. In the first half of the night, say, from 11:000 p.m. to 3:00 a.m., your cycles are dominated by NREM, specifically deep sleep.
That's the heavy restoration work.
That's the physical repair, heavy lifting. You get very little dream sleep here.
Okay, so the first shift is the heavy lifting crew.
Correct. But as you move into the early morning, let's say 4:00, 5:00, 6:00 a.m., the deep sleep almost vanishes. Those 90-minute cycles are now almost entirely comprised of REM, or rapid eye movement sleep.
This implies that cutting your sleep short has a really disproportionate impact, depending on when you do it.
It's simple math. If you normally wake up at 8 a.m., but you force yourself up at 6 a.m. to hit the gym or catch a flight, you haven't just lost 25% of your total sleep time. You might have lost 60 to 80% of your REM sleep for the entire night, because that's the time window where REM lives.
Wow.
You've surgically removed one specific type of brain function.
Which explains why I can function physically on those days, but I'm an emotional wreck.
Precisely.
I haven't lost sleep generally. I've lost the emotional processing specifically.
You kept the foundation, but you demolished the roof.
Okay, before we get into the stages themselves, the actual rooms in this house, I want to step back to the starting line. What actually pushes us into this cycle in the first place? The sources talk about a two-process model. This sounds like the engine room of the whole operation.
It is. It basically answers the question, why do I get tired? And it's a constant tug of war between two opposing forces, process C and process S.
Process C is the circadian rhythm, I'm guessing.
Yes. Process C is your internal evolutionary clock. It's regulated by this tiny cluster of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, which sits right above your optic nerve.
So it can see the light.
It samples the light in your environment and says, okay, sun is up, release cortisol, be alert, or sun is down, release melatonin, prepare for bed.
So that's the signal, the master clock on the wall. What is process S?
Process S is the pressure. It's a chemical hourglass. From the very second you open your eyes in the morning, a chemical called adenosine starts building up in your brain.
Adenosine. Okay, I see this pop up in every single sleep paper. What is it, practically speaking?
It's a metabolic byproduct. Your brain burns energy ATP to think, to move, to exist. When you burn ATP, the leftover product is adenosine. It's like the ash left over from the fire.
Right.
The longer you are awake, the more ash, the more adenosine accumulates in the brain.
So all day long, as I'm working and thinking and living, I'm filling up this bucket of sleepiness.
That's a great way to view it. And the only way to empty that bucket is to sleep. So the perfect night of sleep happens when these two curves intersect perfectly. You want your adenosine bucket to be overflowing right at the moment your circadian clock dims the lights.
And that's why jet lag hurts so much.
Exactly.
The bucket is completely full, but the clock on the wall says it's noon.
The signals are crossed. It's a total mismatch. But let's say the signals work. You lie down, the bucket is full, you drift off. Now we enter the architecture. The sources break this down into stages, and I really like the analogy of a bus route here.
Right, because you can't just teleport to the destination. You can't just arrive at deep sleep.
No, you have to ride the stops. You have to descend. And the very first stop is NREM Stage 1, or N1.
The sources call this the doormat.
It's the transition zone. It's very brief, usually just 1 to 7 minutes. You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and your head starts to drop and reality gets a little fuzzy? That's N1. Your brain waves are slowing down from the rapid-fire beta waves of wakefulness into slower theta waves.
Is this where the kick happens, the hypnic jerk?
Yes. It's a fascinating phenomenon. As your muscles relax, your brain sometimes misinterprets that rapid relaxation as falling. It thinks you're falling out of a tree or something.
A primal instinct.
Yeah, a protective one. So it sends a panic signal to the limbs to catch yourself. Kick. And you jolt awake.
It's a glitch in the primal software.
A protective glitch, exactly. But assuming you don't kick yourself awake, you pass through the doormat and you enter NREM Stage 2, or N2.
And according to the data, this is where we spend most of our time, like the biggest chunk of the night.
It is. About 45 to 55% of your total night is spent here. We often call it light sleep, but I think that's a misnomer.
Why?
It makes it sound unimportant. I prefer to call N2 the stabilizer.
Okay, what is it stabilizing?
It's stabilizing the sleep state itself. If you look at an EEG readout of N2, you see these weird sudden bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles and K complexes.
They sound like components from a sci-fi movie. What are they actually doing?
Think of them as the bouncers guarding the door of a club. Their job is to block external stimuli. Let's say a car honks outside or your partner shifts in bed. Your ears hear that sound. The signal goes to the brain. But the sleep spindles fire a burst of activity in the thalamus that effectively says, don't process this, stay asleep, it's not a threat.
So it's active noise cancellation for the cortex.
In a way, yes. It suppresses cortical arousal. But it's not just defense. N2 is also where a lot of motor skill memory consolidation happens. If you learn a new piano piece during the day, N2 is when the brain hard codes those finger movements into memory.
It's saving the file.
Exactly. But it's mostly the bridge to the main event, which is Stage 3, NREM3.
Deep sleep.
Slow wave sleep. This is the good stuff.
This is the restoration chamber. This is what you crave when you're just physically exhausted.
In N3, the brain waves slow way down to these massive, rhythmic, high-voltage delta waves. It is a coma-like state. It is incredibly difficult to wake someone up from deep sleep. And if you do, they will be groggy and completely disoriented for minutes. This is where the physical body gets repaired.
Right. The sources mention growth hormone specifically.
Yes. During N3, your pituitary gland releases a massive pulse of human growth hormone. And it's not just for kids who are growing. It's for repairing muscle tears after a workout, rebuilding bone density, and strengthening the immune system. All that happens here.
But the part that really grabbed me in the research, and I mean, I had to reread this 3 times, was the sewage system, the brain's cleaning crew. I had no idea this existed.
The glymphatic system. It is one of the most significant discoveries in sleep science in the last decade, maybe longer.
Explain how this works, because the visual is just wild.
So your brain burns a huge amount of energy during the day, right? All that thinking.
Right.
That metabolic process creates waste products, toxins, specifically things like beta amyloid and tau proteins.
It's the same stuff linked to Alzheimer's disease.
The very same. During the day, that trash just piles up in the hallways of your brain between the neurons. But when you enter deep N3 sleep, something absolutely incredible happens. The glial cells, which are the support cells surrounding your neurons, they actually shrink.
They physically get smaller. By how much?
They shrink by up to 60%. This opens up the channels, the space between the neurons. Then your cerebral spinal fluid rushes in like a high-pressure power washer, and it flushes out all those toxins. It literally cleans the brain.
That creates a pretty terrifying implication for people who consistently don't get deep sleep.
It does. If you aren't getting N3, you aren't running the power washer. You are waking up with yesterday's metabolic trash still clogging up your neural pathways.
Yeah.
Over years and decades, that accumulation is a major, major risk factor for neurodegenerative disease.
And it also mentions stress here, the HPA axis. I feel like we hear about cortisol all the time, but how does deep sleep actually start it?
This is the immediate benefit you feel. Deep sleep provides a potent, powerful inhibition of the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Your stress response.
Your stress response system. During the day, that engine is revving. N3 sleep slams on the brakes. It actively suppresses the release of cortisol. It resets your stress baseline to 0 for the next day.
So if I miss deep sleep, I'm not just tired, I'm chemically primed to be stressed out.
You start the day with your throttle already stuck at 20%. You're more reactive, more anxious, because the system never got the chance to cool down and reset.
Okay, so that's the deep stuff. That dominates the first half of the night. Then what, we take the elevator all the way up to the penthouse?
To the penthouse. REM sleep, the dream state.
Yeah.
Scientists call this paradoxical sleep.
Paradoxical because the brain looks awake.
It's eerie. If I hooked you up to a monitor during REM, your brain activity looks almost identical to when you're wide awake and, frankly, panicking. High frequency, chaotic, burning energy like crazy. But, and this is the key, your voluntary muscles are completely paralyzed.
That's the atonia.
Yes, it's a safety lock.
Yeah.
Evolution realized that if you were having a vivid hallucination about fighting a tiger, it's probably a bad idea if you actually start throwing punches in the cave.
Right, that would be a problem.
So the brain stem sends a signal down the spinal cord that paralyzes the major muscle groups. You can't act out your dreams.
But why do we need it? If N3 cleans the brain and fixes the body, what is REM actually doing? I mean, why do we dream at all?
Think of REM as emotional first aid. This is a concept heavily supported by Dr. Matthew Walker's work. REM is the only time during the entire 24-hour cycle that a specific chemical called noradrenaline is completely shut off in your brain.
And noradrenaline is the anxiety molecule.
It's the stress chemical. It's the brain's version of adrenaline. During the day, it's always present to some degree. But in REM, it drops to 0. Yet, the emotional and memory centers of the brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus, they remain highly active.
So you're replaying memories, but without the actual stress chemical attached.
Exactly. It allows the brain to process difficult or even traumatic memories in a uniquely safe neurochemical environment. It takes the memory, the facts of what happened, and it strips away the painful, stinging, visceral emotion that's attached to it.
It's the difference between remembering a car accident and feeling the impact all over again every time you think about it.
That is the perfect distinction. It turns an emotional scar into just a narrative memory. Without REM, we stay emotionally reactive. The sources use this term I love, limbic friction.
Limbic friction. That's a great term. It sounds like a band name, but it describes a very specific feeling.
It's that feeling of being tired and wired. When you are REM deprived, your amygdala, your fear center, becomes up to 60% more reactive to negative stimuli.
Wow.
So you snap at your kids, you rage in traffic, you interpret an innocent email from your boss as an attack. Your emotional regulator is broken because you didn't get your overnight therapy session.
It's also where the creativity comes from, right? The sleep on it phenomenon.
Yes, absolutely. NREM sleep strengthens individual facts. It's like saving individual files to the hard drive. But REM connects the files. It is associative processing. It connects idea A to idea Z in bizarre, nonlinear ways. That's why you can wake up with a solution to a problem that completely stumped you yesterday. Your brain made a connection you never would have made while awake.
So NREM is save, and REM is synthesize.
Correct. It builds the web of knowledge.
So we have this beautiful symphony. We drop down into N1, we stabilize in N2, we power wash and repair in N3, we come up to REM for therapy, and then we repeat. It's beautiful.
It is the absolute foundation of human health.
But, and then here comes the bad news, most of us are taking a sledgehammer to this architecture every single night. And usually we're doing it with things we think are helping us sleep.
We are the demolition crew. We destroy the architecture, and then we wake up and wonder why the house is cold and drafty.
Let's talk about the big one, the main culprit. Alcohol, the nightcap. I mean, it's so culturally embedded. You have a drink to unwind to help you sleep. But the science here is just, it's damning.
It is the most dangerous and widely believed myth in sleep health. We had to be crystal clear about this. Alcohol is not a sleep aid. Alcohol is a sedative.
Can you distinguish those for me? What's the real difference between sedation and natural sleep?
Sedation is just the inactivation of the cortex.
Yeah.
If I hit you in the head with a brick, you are unconscious. You're not asleep.
Right.
Alcohol is a chemical brick. It knocks out the firing of the neurons in your cortex.
I fall asleep faster when I drink. Everyone says that.
Your sleep onset latency decreases, yes. You lose consciousness more quickly. But you are sedating your brain, not entering natural sleep cycles. And the architecture pays a very, very heavy price.
The sources outline a mechanism of destruction for alcohol. It seems to hit both halves of the night differently, which is interesting.
It's a double tap. In the first half of the night, alcohol is one of the most potent suppressors of REM sleep we know of. The body is so busy metabolizing the ethanol that it actively blocks the brain from entering the dream state.
So you're losing all that emotional first aid we just talked about.
Gone. Right. You might black out, but you aren't getting the therapy. That's why people often feel anxious or have anxiety the next day. But then, in the second half of the night, it actually gets worse.
How?
As your liver finishes processing the alcohol, it produces byproducts like aldehydes, and the sedative effect wears off.
This is the rebound effect.
The rebound. Your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight system, realizes it's been suppressed for 4 hours, and it surges back with a vengeance. Heart rate spikes. Body temperature rises. Cortisol floods the system.
And that's when you wake up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, feeling awful.
That is, wake after sleep onset, or WASO, inaction. Alcohol creates massive fragmentation. Even if you don't fully wake up, you are constantly being pulled out of deep sleep into shallow, non-restorative sleep. You wake up exhausted because, architecturally, your sleep was just shattered glass.
Okay, that's the nightcap. What about the morning starter? Caffeine. I think people understand that caffeine keeps you awake, but the mechanism goes right back to that bucket of adenosine we talked about.
Right. Remember the adenosine bucket, the sleep pressure chemical? Caffeine is a molecular mimic. It has a shape that looks almost exactly like adenosine to your brain's receptors.
It plugs the hole.
It parks itself in the receptor. It's like a car taking a parking spot. So the adenosine is floating around, but it can't dock. The brain can't feel how tired it actually is.
It's like putting a piece of black tape over the fuel gauge in your car.
That is a perfect analogy. The engine is still running on fumes, but you can't see it. The adenosine is still building up. So when the caffeine eventually wears off, when your liver finally clears it out, the tape comes off the gauge.
And suddenly you realize the tank is completely empty. That's the crash.
That's a crash. But here is the architectural damage. Caffeine has a half-life of roughly 5 to 6 hours. For some people, it's even longer.
A quarter life of 10 to 12 hours?
Exactly. So if you have a coffee at 4 p.m., by 10:00 p.m., half of that caffeine is still active in your system.
So even if I can fall asleep, the caffeine is still there doing something.
Yes. And its presence interferes directly with deep NREM sleep. It fights against those beautiful, slow delta waves. It makes the sleep shallower, more fragile. You might clock 8 hours on your fitness tracker, but you've lost 20% or more of the deep wave activity.
So you don't get the full power wash.
You don't get the full power wash.
Yeah.
You wake up feeling not quite restored, so what do?
You drink more coffee to feel awake.
And the vicious cycle repeats itself.
There is one more demolition expert here that the sources mention, and that's stress, the tired but wired phenomenon.
This is the feedback loop from hell. We already know deep sleep inhibits cortisol, your stress hormone. But the streak goes both ways. High cortisol actively prevents deep sleep.
So if I'm stressed about work, checking my emails at 11:00 p.m.
You are spiking your cortisol right at the moment it needs to be plummeting to its lowest point. This keeps your brain in a state of hypervigilance. Even if you fall asleep, your brain is still scanning for threats. It causes hundreds of these tiny microarousals.
So you're not getting that continuous deep sleep.
You keep popping out of deep sleep into light sleep. And because you didn't get enough deep sleep, you don't reset the HPA for the next day.
So your cortisol is higher tomorrow.
Which makes it even harder to sleep tomorrow night. It is a self-perpetuating cycle of exhaustion and anxiety.
So we have the architecture and we have the demolition crew. If we want to fix this, if we want to stop taking a sledgehammer to our own foundation, how do we measure success? The sources suggest a framework called QQRT.
I love frameworks. And QQRT is a fantastic heuristic for evaluating your sleep health. It stands for quantity, quality, regularity, and timing.
Okay, let's run through them. Quantity is the easy one, I suppose.
Quantity is duration. For about 95% of adults, this is 7 to 9 hours. And I know people love to say, oh, I can run on 5.
The old, I'll sleep when I'm dead line.
The data is very clear. If you sleep less than 7 hours a night regularly, you will be dead sooner. There is a specific gene, the DEC2 gene, that allows a tiny fraction of people to function on 5 hours. But it is incredibly rare. You are statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than to have that gene.
Okay, so don't bank on being a genetic mutant. Got it. What about quality?
Quality is about efficiency and continuity. We calculate sleep efficiency as the time you're actually asleep divided by the total time you spend in bed. Your goal should be above 85%. If you're in bed for 9 hours but only sleep for 6, that's poor quality. That indicates fragmentation, likely from things like alcohol, sleep apnea, or stress. It has to be continuous.
Regularity. This is the one I think everyone struggles with.
Regularity is the king of sleep hygiene. It is the anchor for your circadian rhythm. It means going to bed and waking up at the same time, plus or minus 30 minutes, every single day.
Even on weekends, that's social death for some people.
That's tough, I know. But the brain craves predictability. When you wake up at 7 a.m. all week for work and then you sleep until 11 a.m. on Saturday, you are giving yourself a condition called social jet lag.
You're confusing the master clock.
You are shifting your circadian rhythm by 4 hours. It's the biological equivalent of flying from New York to London and back every single weekend.
Wow.
So Sunday night, your body thinks it's 7:00 p.m. when it's 11:00 p.m. You can't fall asleep, and then Monday morning is a complete disaster. You're giving yourself jet lag without ever leaving the house.
And finally, timing. How is that different from regularity?
Timing refers to alignment with your natural chronotype. Are you a morning lark or a night owl? This is largely genetic. If you are a true night owl, forcing yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for a job is biologically abrasive. You are trying to be awake when your body is screaming for sleep. You want to surf your own biological wave, not swim against it.
I want to take a quick technical detour before we close, if we can. We've mentioned a lot of chemicals today: adenosine, cortisol, alcohol. But the notes list a whole chemical cocktail that orchestrates this entire dance. Can we just quickly identify the key players?
Sure. It's a beautifully complex handoff. The easiest way to think of it is a balance of brakes and gas pedals in the brain.
Okay. What's on the gas pedal side?
On one side, you have the wake cocktail: dopamine, noradrenaline, serotonin, histamine, and another one called orexin. These are the gas pedals. They keep the cortex lit up and processing information. They're what make you feel alert.
And the brakes?
The main brake is a neurotransmitter called GABA. It's the primary inhibitory chemical in the brain. It's the shh signal. It quiets the neurons. Most sleeping pills, for instance, they act on the GABA system. And of course, adenosine is the constant weight on that brake pedal.
Where does melatonin fit into all this? People pop melatonin gummies like candy these days.
Melatonin is so widely misunderstood. It is not a sleep switch. It is a darkness hormone. It's a timing signal.
What's the distinction there?
Think of the whole process of falling asleep like a 100-meter dash. Melatonin is the official with the starting gun.
I like this.
It fires the gun to signal, the race is starting, it's dark now, get ready. But melatonin doesn't run the race for you. It organizes the timing of the event, but it doesn't generate the sleep itself.
So taking it helps with the timing if you're jet lagged, for instance, but it won't actually knock you out.
Correct. And that transition between stages, specifically that crucial switch from NREM to REM, is governed by a very specific seesaw of these chemicals. You need another chemical, acetylcholine, to rise, and you need serotonin and noradrenaline to completely crash to enter REM sleep. It's an incredibly delicate dance.
Which means if you have too much stress chemical in the system,
the door to REM is locked. You can't get in.
It really highlights how fragile this architecture is. It's not a brick wall. It's more like a house of cards.
I'd say it's more like a finely tuned orchestra. It's resilient, but if one section is out of tune, if the percussion, your stress is way too loud, or the conductor, your circadian rhythm, is offbeat, the whole symphony just falls apart into noise.
So bringing this all home, the big takeaway for me personally is that I have to stop thinking of sleep as a bank account where I just deposit generic hours and hope for the best.
You can't optimize what you don't understand. If you view sleep as an active construction site, you suddenly realize you need to give the workers the right amount of time and the right materials to do their job. You can't rush the foundation, which is deep sleep, and you certainly can't skip the electrical and plumbing, which is REM.
And if you are one of the millions of people waking up tired despite getting your 8 hours, you need to look at the blueprint, not the clock.
Exactly. Ask yourself the diagnostic questions. Am I feeling emotionally fragile and irritable? Maybe I'm missing REM because of that glass of wine. Am I feeling physically shattered and brain fogged? Maybe I'm missing deep sleep because of that afternoon espresso or those late-night work emails.
It completely transforms the problem from I need more sleep to I need better sleep.
Precisely. And here's a final provocative thought for everyone listening to mull over. We are obsessed with our bedtime. I went to bed at 11. But we rarely, if ever, measure wake after sleep onset, or WASO.
The interruption time during the night.
The interruption time. The emerging research suggests that your WASO score might be a better predictor of your daytime function and your long-term health than your total sleep time is. Perhaps the secret to high performance isn't just sleeping more, but sleeping unbroken. The continuity of the cycle is what allows that complex neurochemistry to do its work without constantly having to stop and reboot.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Stop worrying so much about the clock on the wall and start worrying about the continuity of the cycle itself.
Treat your sleep like a performance. Set the stage, dim the lights, and let the orchestra play the whole symphony from beginning to end without interruption.
I love that. I am definitely going to look at my pillow a little differently tonight, not as an off switch, but as the entrance to the construction site. Thanks for breaking all this down.
My pleasure. Sleep well.
Catch you next time on The Deep Dive.